someone that's close like that. Sometimes you could talk about it. Now, if a person's usually, you're going to tell your wife, you talk to the children about me negatively, most likely she will either say, it's not true, or I was just telling them things that don't make you look bad because I was just pointing out something. So you're going to get into a vicious cycle. He said, she said, I did speak negative, did not speak. You have to know where there's a benefit. Even if something disturbs you, you have to know what's the best way to approach it. Do you overlook it? Do you address it? And how do you address it? So that's how I would put it in a framework. If indeed it's something that needs to be addressed, and you talk about things like things she takes very serious about herself, and then other things she dismisses, we all have that. We all have things that we consider important and not that important to someone else. I think it comes down to communication, and you may need, between the two of you, and you can bring up issues in a pleasant way. I would never bring them up in the moment, the idna derischa, meaning in the moment when there's the frustration or there's anger. I would wait when there's a calm time and just have a conversation that's not attacking and doesn't require anyone becoming defensive. If that doesn't work, then the option may be maybe both of you sit with someone else. Or ultimately, if that all doesn't work and it doesn't affect the whole package, then maybe something you just have to overlook, even though it may be considered relatively important. That's how I would answer this. And what Chassidus says in regards to disagreeing with your wife, Chassidus says that we have to be healthy people. Healthy people does not mean that you have to be preaching and demanding of your wife and telling her what to do, nor she to you. It means there's a menschlichkeit, there's a bittel that you show to each other, a respect to each other. And that's what's demanded. If you see something that needs to be dealt with, you have to remember you're both in it together, it takes two to tango, and you have to address it in that fashion. To say to just swallow everything, accept everything? No, some things that should not be accepted if it's really a problem. Something should be overlooked. And that again has to be determined case by case. Here I don't have enough details to really say more than what I've said till now. So I hope this was helpful. And above all, let me say this. There's three partners in a marriage. There's God, and there's the husband, and there's the wife. As I said, you have bittel. The Gemara says, Eish, the Yud of the Ish, the Hey of the Isha, creates Shalom. When you don't have the divine in there, then people's personality becomes more powerful. So then you don't have the big picture. Then it becomes me and you. And was it going to be my way or your way? You want to have the element of knowing that there's a chuppah that always hovers above every marriage, which is the makif, that equalizes both two halves of one Selam Elikim, and with an intention of both together working on something. Now, some people in marriages do have issues. Their spouses, sometimes the man, sometimes the woman, sometimes the husband, sometimes the wife, that may actually need to work something through. They grew up in a home where there was a lot of criticism, let's say, or other type of abuse, and that may affect how they're behaving in this. What you describe here sounds a bit of a person who may have that type of attitude. So they're very strong about what they believe in, and other things don't matter to them because they need to have a sense of control. Now, if that's indeed the case, as I said, if it's big enough, then maybe you do need to go to a professional, talk to someone, or a mashpia, or a rav, or a professional, and address it. But overall, the attitude that we have Hashem as our partner, and we're building a house like that, and Shabbos comes, and Shabbos LaHashem, Shabbos Kedesh, and that's the dominating factor, more than the personalities, is one of the key things that's necessary from the point of view of Torah and Chassidus that makes marriages work. Okay. The next question is something about depression and anxiety. I had one respectful comment about your Instagram account. Instagram is one of the social media where we post different pieces. I was troubled by the advice on the video that depression and anxiety are signs of a spiritual lack. For example, at one time I was depressed and it turned out to be low thyroid. My husband was anxious after a stroke and benefited from medication. People who have these disorders can be at risk and should also be told to get a checkup. I'm not discounting the spiritual side of it, but suggest that there be a disclaimer of some sort. I put things like that on my website when necessary. Okay. Which another way of questioning is anxiety and depression a spiritual malady? So I believe when I spoke about this in this program in the episodes 4, 58, 93, and 139, I make that qualification very clear. There is clinical depression where absolutely maybe medication may be needed, other interventions that are medical, just like if a person has a calcium deficiency or insulin deficiency, they need a doctor. And nitnu reshus l'reif l'rapis, we have doctors for this reason. However, you do find in Chassidus the concept of atzvus, in Tanya, the concept of depression or anxiety that is not medical per se. Now, to clarify, to make sure, you have to obviously have a person suffering from anxiety, they should definitely go see a doctor. But there is the element that it is a spiritual malady. It's the soul not getting what it needs. Or, as he explains in Tanya when he speaks about atzvus, it's a person whose yetzer hara is making you feel depressed in order not to allow you to serve. So it weakens you. It's like he says there, like in the that you feel weakened and demoralized. Demoralization not coming from necessarily anything medical. Something you could fight by feeding your soul, by building the confidence necessary that you can fight. So therefore, the qualification absolutely must be made. But at the end of the day, the anxiety can very much be a strictly spiritual malady, of a spiritual lack. Just like your body tells you when it's hungry, anxiety tells you that your soul is not getting what it needs. But again, with the qualification that this should always be checked out, because absolutely, sometimes you need both. Sometimes you need the spiritual intervention plus the medical intervention. So I stand by that. In other words, I agree with what you're saying, and thank you for making that point. I'm going to do 2 follow-ups, and then I see some of the things I promised I would do. I'm not going to do this week. We'll have to move it to next. President or Mr. Trump? Dear Rabbi, with all due respect, why do you use the term Mr. Trump? I never heard you say Mr. Obama. You use the title President or just Obama, but never Mr. Obama. Why difference? Thanks. I'm glad that people are medayik and are focusing on every word that I utter. I don't recall saying it intentionally. I don't have a problem saying President Trump. That's his title. I don't have a problem saying Mr. Trump. I have no problem saying Mr. Obama. I have no problem saying President Obama. These are titles that are legal titles. This is the title of the person that was elected. Whether you like the guy or not has nothing to do with it. So there's nothing to be read into these words. And it is what it is. So I just wanted to clarify that. And I'm not sure why it's bothering you, but anyway, there's no real difference, and that's that. Nothing more to say. Another follow-up about the Rabashkin phenomenon. A good Tavach, Rabbi Jacobson. About the Rabashkin case, while all the jubilation over the Rabashkin release is warranted, at the same time we have to remember that there are many Jews still locked up in prison, and many more are in hospitals and state hospitals. I think we need to remember these people and visit them, even though it may not be a high-profile case like Shalom Rabashkin. You can't imagine the joy you bring a person when you come visit with hot food, etc. I also want to comment, when speaking about the Rabashkin case, you said you're not familiar with all the legal aspects of the case. Perhaps you should talk to Shalom Mordechai's lawyer, Gary Appel. I just listened to him tonight. He made a very good case that he is innocent and the accusations were libelous. I actually did speak to him. And not only that, I heard him speak at an event. That's what I was referring to last time I spoke about this. I said, I am not familiar. That's all I said. But there are people absolutely familiar, and it's very good to hear what they have to say. So again, thank you for your comments. And with that, we conclude the follow-up. There's more follow-ups, but again, there's limited time.